Hey everybody, and welcome to another Chairman of the Board ranking video. So in this series I take a look at the last 10 new to me board games that I have played, and I rank them from my least favourite up to my most favourite. And I have to say, I think out of all of these videos that I've done, this is probably the highest quality list that I've done in terms of game recommendations. And normally only a couple each time I make a video, but this one there is certainly more than that. But before I get started on these 10 games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer. And if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. At number 10, I have Potato Man. Now this is a trick-taking game, which is essentially why it is lower on the list. Generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of trick-taking at all, which might be a contradiction for a game that comes up later. But this one is a more of a traditional one where you're playing cards. I believe the twist in this one is that you cannot follow suit, or you have to play a different coloured suit if you can. But the different coloured suits come in different ranges in terms of the number, and if you win a trick with the higher numbers, you get fewer points. So the idea is you want to be winning tricks with the lower value cards to get more victory points, and managing your hand accordingly. I think trick-taking games in general are a bit too slight for me. I don't quite get the nuances, and I just don't find them kind of interesting enough or have enough of those kind of exciting moments to keep me engaged. So this one, I think maybe with more plays I could get it and get more invested in the game, but as it stands, it just doesn't quite do it for me. So that is Potato Man at number 10. At number 9, I have Balloon Pop. So this is a puzzly style game. Quite a few of these games out there, almost Tetris style. In this one, instead of going down on your board like gravity, falling and moving your pieces, this one they are going up as if these pieces are balloons filled with helium. And then you're trying to create blocks of the same colour, and then if you get to a certain size, then they'll kind of all pop and you'll get a certain amount of points. Gorgeous production. I mean, the pieces here are absolutely lovely. These kind of frosted plastic large squares look really nice on the table. The gameplay, however, fell a little bit flat for me because the scoring was a bit too small. It seems like when you create these big groups, you'll still only get a point or two, here or there, which didn't feel big enough. So I thought this could have really ramped up the excitement by offering you more points. It's probably just a mental trick, but it just felt like you were pulling teeth in order to get any points out of this one. So that is Balloon Pop at number 9. At number 8, I have Awkward Guests 2, the Burwick cases. Now, if you regularly watch my channel, you might know that Awkward Guests is one of my favourite deduction games of all time, if not my favourite game. This one is a 2-player exclusive version of the game where you will actually set the challenge for your opponent. So it's still competitive, but you are actually making up the murder mystery yourself and putting that challenge to your opponent, while they do the same for you, and it's going to be a race to get that murder mystery solved. Now the gameplay is probably 75% the same as the original, except this one, instead of using a card system, you use dice instead to ask your questions. Now the only reason this one is lower is because I personally prefer the original because it caters to a wider player count. This one, again, is strictly 2 players, and it's one of those games that would definitely start to peak if you really get invested with the same person and start to understand some of the nuances and little tricks you can pull on your opponents. But again, because I want that more flexible style in terms of who I could play this with, player counts, etc., I'd stick with my original version. But again, if you do like deduction games and you always play them with one other person, then this is definitely one to take a look at. And I think it is still currently live on Kickstarter. So that is Awkward Guests 2, the Burwick cases, at number 8. At number 7, I have Quicksand. So this is a real-time cooperative game where you are moving these sand timers along these different tiles, trying to get them all to this kind of safety area. And the idea of this one is that you're playing these cards from your hand, and depending on the colour or symbol on that card, you're going to move all these sand timers on those particular matching tiles and flip them over and move on to the next one. And all these sand timers move at different speeds, so some of them are ultra fast, some of them are a bit slow and plodding, And it's all about trying to, play these cards most efficiently and, of course, not waste any time, not play too fast, not play too slow. And the game does have somewhat of a campaign mode where you are playing through these different scenarios, getting more difficult as you go. More faster sound timers get involved, included. And, more tiles. You cannot communicate. All these kind of things we've seen before. But in terms of a real-time game, this one works for me. I like how pure and simple it is. And it's definitely one I'd pull out in the right occasion. And to be honest, I've played this quite a lot since I've acquired this one. And, I'm still enjoying it, which is a good sign. So that is Quicksand at number 7. Okay, so we're going to start the recommendations nice and early this episode. So as I said, it's going to be a very solid bunch of games, and the recommendations start from number 6. So, that's completely unprecedented. So at number 6, I have Earth. So Earth was certainly one of the blockbuster games of 2023. It's a tableau builder card game as you are building up this 4x4 grid of cards, which will all score you points in different ways. You're growing these little tokens on them. You're kind of spawning these little sprouts on them, all synergizing with each other. I really do love the level of player interaction here, although you're not maybe directly competing in a lot of ways. But whenever people select an action, everybody else gets a follow-up action of that in a kind of a weaker version. So if you think of games like, Twilight Imperium, or games like San Juan or Puerto Rico, this one has that similar mechanism where again you're always leeching off other people's selections. Definitely a game of abundance. You're getting tons of points for doing pretty much anything in this game, and it does feel a little bit loose at times where you can't really go wrong. But when your points go into the hundreds, that you're going to be. It's going to be pretty easy to acquire those points. But I do enjoy it. It's certainly a light-hearted feeling game. Everything feels good here. And I like the diverse ways in which you can score points, because there's lots of kind of in-game objectives, objectives that you're racing for, personal objectives, even objectives that you're putting on your tableau themselves. So there are tons of different ways you can, tackle this game. So I really do like that. And I can certainly see why this one blew up to the levels that it has. Maybe I'm a little bit south on where I rate it compared to a lot of other people do, but I don't shy away from giving this one a recommendation because it is a very nice game. So that is Earth at number 6. At number 5, I have Caper Europe. So this one's been on my watch list for a long time now. I've finally managed to get a copy at a reasonable price, because this one has been quite expensive at times. But this one is a 2-player only kind of tug-of-war style game where you're fighting over these 3 different locations. And the idea is that these locations are these kind of heist locations where you are playing these characters to, and then also gearing up these characters with different pieces of these equipment cards to hopefully skew things in your favour. And there's lots of different ways you can acquire points here, so not only through the tug-of-war system itself, which is quite a significant part of the game, but I do like that's not make or break in this game, because the characters themselves often have scoring conditions, and there's even a bit of set collection going on at the same time. So I'm still only playing the introductory mode of this one. I've only played a couple of games so far, but it does come with 4 different scenarios with different location cards. So really interesting to see how they shake things up. But the system itself, I'm really impressed with. A beautiful production, lovely artwork, and it just plays very smoothly and has quite a lot going on for a 20-minute game also, or in that region. So yeah, at the moment, really impressed, and this one could continue to rise for me. So that is Caper Europe at number 5. At number 4, I have Treta, which has quickly risen for me actually, because when I initially played this one, I did rate it below accommodation level, but the more I play it, the more I like it. So this is a somewhat of a set collection, push your luck style game that is very similar to Coloretto, if you're familiar with that game. This one, however, has kind of an all or nothing scoring system where you are collecting these animal tokens, and if you collect exactly 3 of them, you'll score quite a hefty amount of points, but if you start collecting more of them, then you'll start losing points. And because of the game system, you can kind of lure your opponent into traps or force your opponent to take tiles that they don't want and sabotage their scoring. So it has the system where you can either play a tile to a row or take a row, but of course with each tile that you play, it becomes more inviting to the next player. Do you want to duck out early? Do you want to commit to this and keep on pushing your luck and getting more and more for your turns? But you've got to beware that you need to pace yourself, because if you take too much too early, then it's pretty much inevitable that you're going to tank your scoring when it comes to those later rounds. Just a true filler game. Really enjoyable. I can't really see anybody not liking this one because it flows so nicely, and it has some pretty interesting decisions to be made. So I've already picked up the expansion for this one, which I've not tried yet, so looking forward to adding that one as well. But as it stands, I'm really enjoying Treta at the moment, and I certainly do recommend it. So that is Treta at number 4. At number 3, I have Far Away. So this is a little kind of engine building card game where you are playing cards from left to right, and then once you've got 8 of those cards, you are going to score them from right to left. And all of these cards have a kind of a scoring condition on them with prerequisites, and anything, when it comes to scoring the cards, only things to the right of the card that you're scoring is going to act as a prerequisite. So you want your kind of more ambitious cards at the start and your less ambitious ones later, and hopefully get some points out of all of them. But it also comes with this additional twist where if you play these cards in increasing numerical order, you'll get some bonus cards which will increase your scoring and give you more kind of prerequisites in terms of symbology and things to trigger other cards. Now, I also love the drafting system here, which is somewhat similar to a game like King Domino, where if you play lower cards, which are generally weaker, you will get first draft on the next card from the communal pool. So lots of things we've seen before here, but I do love that system. Playing left to right and scoring right to left makes it feel a little bit more distinct. Lovely visual graphics. I love the artwork with this one. Plays in around 25 minutes and lots of pretty tough decisions to be made, to be honest. So all about managing that small hand of cards that you have and knowing when to play a low card to get the card you want from the display and so on. And of course trying to min-max every single card that you play. Only played this one once so far, so this one, my thoughts aren't really solidified, but as it stands, I'm really liking the flow of this one. I like the rule sets, I like the potentials of the different ways you can score, and yeah, just a very nice filler game. There's some I think is going to do well, to say the least. So that is Far Away at number 3. Okay, so let's get into the top 2 games here, and to be honest, if I could, I would rate them both number 1 because I think they're both incredible games. I rate them about the same, but I have to make one number 1 and number 2. But if I could make them both number 1, then I certainly would. But at number 2, I have The Veil of Eternity, and my oh my, is this a fantastic little kind of combo-rific card game as you're building up a tableau of these character cards, or these different creatures and things, which all have unique powers on them which synergize with other cards. And this game also has a fantastic currency system where you can only ever have 4 pieces of currency at any time, which can be in different denominations, but you need to be careful about how you manage that and not waste any of it. So all you're doing is you're reserving cards, you're playing cards, or you're selling cards for the actual currency themselves, and it's all about how to manage your actions efficiently, not to commit to too much, and all about trying to find those combos and synergies between those cards. And to be honest, the level of combinations here are absolutely mind-blowing. I think these are really bombastic, they're really fun, some of them can just synergize in fantastic ways and just completely take off, and it makes you feel like you're really powerful as the game progresses. Oh, I also love this system of, with each round, you can play one more card than the last. So it's not really overwhelming. For the first round, you can only play 1 card. The second round, you can play 2 cards, and so on. So you're drip-fed these cards, and you're not, given all the information at once, which makes your tableau a bit more manageable, and you can really find those intricacies between those cards. I don't have a single bad word to say about this game. I think it is phenomenal. I think it's one of the best filler games, or maybe filler plus games, that I've played in years. And I think it's one of the best games I've played in years. So that is The Veil of Eternity, a fantastic game. Check out my review, which I've done in some detail. This one is an absolute belter. So that is The Veil of Eternity at number 2. And finally, at number 1, I have Jiraku. Now, if you were to tell me that a game would actually beat The Veil of Eternity in my ranking video at this time, then I would have called you mad, because Veil of Eternity is one of the best games I've played in years, and Jiraku is even maybe slightly better than The Veil of Eternity is. And this is actually an older game, going back to 2015, and it's a hybrid area control and trick-taking game. And if you remember what I said earlier, trick-taking games normally don't work for me, but there's something about the way it's implemented here that just completely resonates with me. So you are, as you'd expect with an area control game, competing over influence of these 6 or 7 different regions by trying to have the most troop types of your colour in that particular region. But the way the board works is quite interesting because you actually have to move in a linear fashion, and the scoring is kind of peaks from the first phase out of 3 to the right side of the board, and then in the middle it's kind of shifted towards the middle, and the last turn is more shifted towards the left. But each of these regions is associated to the cards, and which means when the trick-taking part of the game resonates, or when it plays out, you have to consider lots of different things, because the lower value cards are great because it lets you get into these higher valued regions, but you can also use those cards in different ways in terms of action points. Because, for example, if I played the 6 card, I could either spawn troops into region 6, or I could use 6 action points in order to shift my troops around or to attack other players. And there's another wrinkle on top of that as well, because if you win the trick by playing the highest value, then the region where your daimyo piece is, or your leader piece, will instantly score in terms of the influence in that region. So you want to be making sure you're winning at all times where your daimyo is, or at least maybe trying to win where you think the player who's going to win the trick is daimyo is, because you can even win then. So there's definitely layers of gameplay here. There's systems within systems, and the depth to complexity ratio of this game is off the charts. And I often say that I've played so many games now that it's quite rare when I play a game and I just stop in my tracks and think there's something special here. And this is certainly a game that did that. I think this game is phenomenally designed. It's criminally underrated. I have no idea why this isn't in most people's collection, because it really is a piece of kind of game design art. I think it is an absolutely spectacular design, and I could not recommend it enough. And hopefully this is going to raise a little bit of awareness. And if you like those area control games with nuances, a bit of sophistication, definitely reasonable or meaningful decisions to be made from start to finish, then it doesn't really get much better than Jiraku. And the fact that it all plays in about 45 minutes to an hour just takes it to the next level. So again, could not recommend this one enough. That is Jiraku at number 1. So there we have it. That's another 10 games. Been a pleasure talking about these ones because I've had such a fantastic run of games played recently. So if you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.